Before I start my story, I want to give you a little bit of context so perhaps you can understand what I'm about to say better. In the Gospel of Luke, the lawyer turned to Jesus Christ and said, "Who is this neighbor that I'm supposed to love?" Christ returned to him with a parable. He talked about a Jewish fellow leaving Jerusalem, heading towards Jericho down this long and winding path. About 3/4 of the way down, he's attacked by robbers. They beat him, rob him, strip him, and leave him for dead at the side of the road. Well, a little while later, a priest comes wandering down this very same path. He sees this guy laying there in the gravel, the blood pouring from his face onto the ground. What does he do? Goes to the other side of the path and keeps on going. A little while after that, a Levite comes down the path. Sees his fellow countryman laying there on the ground, in the gravel, blood everywhere. He obviously needs some help. And what does this guy do? Well, he takes a page out of the priest's book and goes, other side of the path, and keeps on going. Now, not a long time after that, a Samaritan comes down this very same path. Now, to understand the significance of this, Samaria at that point in time is a region just above Judea. And they hate each other. Okay. Well, the Samaritan, instead of actually doing what the priest and the Levite had done, sees this fellow down there, obviously needing some help, walks over to him, binds his wounds with oil and wine, puts him on his burro, takes him down to an inn, pays the innkeeper, and says, whatever this guy uses beyond what I've given you, I'll be back in a few days to pay up. Now, religious scholars have looked at this and said, this is what you need to do to be a good Christian. Good Christians help their fellow man. That's what being a Christian is all about. Now, other scholars take a more secular look at this and talk about the fact that mankind is interconnected, enmeshed. I breathe in, you breathe out. If I don't help you, and you don't help me, we are screwed. So whatever way you actually want to look at this and interpret it, I was raised to be a good Samaritan, which led me to do many wonderful things in my life and some questionable things that I managed to justify. For instance, when I was in grade 4, I jumped on the back of this grade 6er as he's peeing into the urinal and started beating him from behind because he hit my friend who had no way to defend himself. Is that a good Samaritan? I thought so. Anyway, at the age of 23, I really had to examine what this ideal was of being a good Samaritan. At that time in my life, I was working in professional theater. Now, if any of you don't know this, or maybe you do, that there's not that much money to be had in theater. Theaters don't have that much money. So to supplement their income beyond any kind of grants that they can get out of the government or donations and such, they do fundraising activities. Some of these things being charity bingo nights. Now, I was working for Pink Ink Theater at that point in time, and I was actually hosting a charity bingo night in New West. Coming home late Friday night on the bus, coming down Fraser, heading to the Big House on Fraser and 49th, a place that I used to live. Yes, it has a rather ominous tone. Anyway, my buddies are there ready and waiting to play Dungeons and Dragons. Yes, I'm a geek. So I'm going down the road, and I finally realize, hey, for the first time, remember I'm in theater, I've got money in my pocket. I'm going to step off and actually have something to eat. So on 41st Avenue, I get off the bus and I go into McDonald's. I know, bad idea. And I get a little bit of food and I decide to walk the rest of the way home. I'm getting down close to the intersection at Fraser and 49th. And I notice that the cars are lining the street. Headlights on. And there's a group of kids, couldn't be more than maybe 13, 14 years old, racing in and around the street, through the scaffolding on one side because there's construction going on, racing around, and I'm going, wow, they're chasing one kid. That's a wild game of tag. Those crazy city kids. Well, when they catch the kid they're looking after or going after, they don't actually go, tag, you're it. They go, you dirty bastard. Okay, I realize at this point in time, this is not a game of tag. Well, they're kids, and I'm an adult. I'm going to put an end to this. So I go running up to the group of them, right? And I see the kid on the ground there, laying the boots to him. I shove them off of him and put my hand down, and I'm looking down. I'm going to put the mic down like this. I'm looking down there, and I'm seeing this guy's back, and I'm kind of leading him over to see how he's doing. And then out of the corner of my eye, I see these feet come up. They're dressed in Nike shoes. Okay. I go a little bit further up. They're black track pants. I go a little bit further up, it's a black tracksuit jacket. A little further up, and I see bling. A little further up, and I see a wispy mustache. And then I see a baseball cap in on and lock position. This dude steps into me and goes, "You don't know what the fuck you're getting into, man. Back the fuck off." What? Well, they're still beating this guy. Hold on. As I push down the way and I push the guys away once more, and this time out of the corner of my eye, I notice that two of the assailants, they're not kids. They're probably as old as I am, and they're built like brick shithouses, and their eyes are as big as the sun because they probably just snorted Peru. So one of them reaches over, grabs me by the collar, lifts me up off the pavement, and what am I going to do at this point? Well, what the fuck? And as I do that, this guy cocks himself back like a bow, and then comes to his head, bam, like a hammer. Well, the next thing I remember, I'm picking myself up the pavement. And I notice how the headlights are glowing off the asphalt. It feels like I'm on the stage in some sort of vaudeville show, and I'm staring into the footlamps of a very silent audience. My face hurts. My ribs hurt. My legs hurt. I get to my feet, and I stumble and stagger off to the side of the road on the other side where there's a bank, and I'm leaning up against the window of the bank, and I turn this way, and there's a bus stop right there, and there's a fellow that's just sitting there at the bus stop. Well, did you just see what happened to me? Guy just shrugs his shoulders. Okay, so I'm left to figure this out on my own. What's going on here? What's happening? Well, I'm not really thinking too well at this point, a little not very clear-headed, and my eyes are just going off in the distance. I'm not really seeing much. And as I'm doing that, I notice that this group of guys that were actually beating this kid come racing around the corner. Obviously, the kid has gotten away, and they're chasing, trying to find him. Unfortunately, because I'm staring at eye level, I make eye contact. As soon as I do that, they veer off course and race after me like a school of angry fish. The two meatheads in the lead, waving their fists like fleshy shillelaghs, and they're coming at me hard, and I'm going, oh, wait a minute! As soon as they get within 5 feet, logic comes into play. You don't have to hit me! Didn't work. Wham! The next thing I remember, I'm picking myself up off the sidewalk. My face really hurts. My ribs really hurt. My legs are in pain. I don't get to my feet this time. I crawl slowly over to the window, and there's a tiny ledge that's about a foot off the ground, and I crawl into the corner of it and huddle against the window. At this point, a red sports car comes racing around the corner and up the street. It's these same guys that were beating that kid, and this time they've got guns, and they're waving them at the window at me, and they're screaming at me. Well, I can't hear what they're saying because my ears are ringing, but I'm getting a distinct impression they want to pop a cap in my ass. Fortunately for me, they don't. They just keep on barreling down the street and disappear into the distance. Well, as soon as they're gone, this guy that had been sitting at the bus stop actually stands up, walks over to me, taps me on the shoulder, goes, "Are you okay?" No. "Do you live around here?" "Yes." "Do you want me to take you home?" "Please." So he lifts me up, and he begins to help me. Now, it's funny how an event can warp space and time. Because my house at this point is about 100 meters away, about a 1.5-minute walk. But it felt like I was never going to get there. And I was stuck in this nightmare of fear. I was shaking. As I was making my way across the crosswalk to the other side of the road, I get this on my shoulder, just like a woodpecker. I spin around. It's a girl. She's about my age, and I notice in the distance behind her, there's a car with the driver's door open. She looks at me and goes, "Where are you going?" "Home?" I don't believe it. You got there and they beat you up, and you're not even going to wait for the police to arrive? You're a coward! What? You were sitting behind the wheel of 2,200 pounds of hurtling death, and stepping on the accelerator could end it of what was happening to me in a second, and you didn't. And you're calling me a coward? Of course, at this point, I'm really not that lucid. So really what came out of my mouth was, I just want to go home. So I did. And when I got there, my roommates were suitably, They phone the cops. The cops show up. They get my story, and they sit me down, and they go, well, obviously you got involved in a bit of a gangland disciplinary action. It might even have been an execution. You probably saved that kid's life. But considering that you don't have a good description of any of these guys, and we don't know whether or not they're local, you probably just want to lay low for about 3 or 4 weeks. Okay. Now at this point, one of the officers notices that I'm actually grasping my side pretty hard. And he goes, do you think you need to go to the hospital? Well, considering that most of the beating I got was when I was unconscious, probably a good idea that I have a doctor check me out, just to make sure. So, ambulance comes. I'm to the hospital, in the emergency room. There I am, laying in the bed. The nurse comes in, whips open the curtains, gives me all sorts of readings, takes my blood pressure, blood reading, everything, walks out to get a doctor, and leaves the curtains open. I see across the room, against the other wall, in a bed, is this kid that I saved. Great. Now he can save me. He probably knows who these people are. I bet you he even has names and addresses. So I look at him, and I go, so, are you going to press any charges? That was when he recognized me. He jumped out of bed, grabbed his clothes, and went, fuck that, they'll kill me. And he left. Let's get back to the story, the parable. The Levite and the priest that passed that guy in the path, were they actually bad people? Let's take a look at the time. You got death, you got disease, you got leprosy, and you got no such thing as penicillin. And besides, what if the guy had been faking it? What if he'd been laying there with a knife just underneath his chest when they go up to help him? He shivs them and take their cash. Or the robbers that put this guy down are waiting in the bushes. And another guy comes by, great, let's add that one to the pot. So, the Samaritan, was he good? Or was he just incredibly stupid and lucky? Well, through experience, I realized that incredibly stupid, especially that night, and lucky don't come hand in hand. So, I still help people, but I'm a little more calculated about it. So if somebody is in a Gastown corner store at about 3 in the morning, I'm standing outside, they come bursting out the door, and another guy comes chasing after him with an aluminum baseball bat, I'll let them figure it out. Or if there's a guy that comes out in the street and a buddy of his reaches up behind him and throws him onto the trunk of a car and goes, where's my fucking money? I'll let them figure it out. So, in the end, does that make me a bad person? Is that why the world may be falling apart? I don't know. You tell me. Thanks.